Hello and welcome. I'm Rev Nhien, founder of Evolving Enneagram. If you've been seeking a compassion-based, contemplative approach to Enneagram-informed transformation, you are most certainly in the right place. This is where contemplation meets the Enneagram. We are in week 11 now of a 12-week Sunday Talk series based on the theme, The Care of the Soul. Throughout these weeks, I've been drawing insights and inspiration from my new book, The Enneagram of the Soul, a 40-day spiritual companion for the 9 types. So this week's talk is titled Your Inner Dynamism, Enneagram Connecting Lines. I'll take today in 2 parts. We'll begin by exploring the connecting lines and what they mean, what I mean by them. And then in part 2, I will draw from the activations in the book, day 34, entitled Your Inner Dynamism. Uh, in essence, what we'll really be exploring here today, like why explore the connecting lines, we're exploring how tapping into the points along your connecting lines is one way we free ourselves from the fixation of personality, allowing our wholeness to express more fully, to be more manifest in our daily lives. So this is one way we break free of ego or personality and open to soul or spirit. So let's begin. Part 1. I'd like to explore again the relationship between our Enneagram connecting lines and our true divine nature. When we are fixated at our core point, I find we tend to even use our spiritual path or spiritual tools to further the personality's agenda. Here are some examples. Well, I'll actually just go through the whole Enneagram here. If I'm aligned with God or the divine or the universe, says the personality in type 1, then I might feel like, oh, if I'm aligned, then I will be more perfect or good, right? So that's the agenda of the one. And it sounds so noble, right? But the idea is that the personality only allows for what it deems is good in this respect and from the egoic point of view. So for the one, the personality can use the spiritual path to be in service to goodness or perfection. The type 2 is like, oh, I'll continue on this contemplative Enneagram journey if it feels like it helps me to be more helpful, pleasing, or connected. Those are some of the egoic concerns. I know it doesn't sound egoic, right? So again, it's not bad, it's just limited. For the 3, oh, I know I have done this, which is there is this implied agreement that if I'm aligned with spirit, then I will be more successful or more outstanding. I will live my divine and greatest potential, right? So there's something in that where the ego can use the path of soul. And when it doesn't seem to be doing that, making me better, more outstanding, more successful, then I'm more likely, and I speak, this is like 3s in general, then I'm more likely to judge the path as less worthy. I might get bored of it. I might think I have other better things to do to be more productive. So for the 4, then, the 4 might be like, oh, yes, this will help me to live my authentic and unique self or to be more depthful. So if it's helping me to be more unique or more depthful, then it might feel like an important path or to have the world see me as special, right? So there's something where, again, the ego can capitalize on the journey or take over the journey and use it in service to it. And if spirituality or the contemplative path isn't doing that right now, we might just think, oh, this is not working, or we're bored of it, or we get distracted by our more worldly concerns and then discontinue the journey. So for the 5, definitely it's like there's this implied like value if I'm learning, right? So like if I'm more knowledgeable or capable, as a result of this path. And again, that's not a bad goal, right? None of these are. It's more of like it's incomplete, that there are other uh, desires or things that one can value in a path for the fullest expression of your spirit. But if you're only interested when you're learning something, like knowledge wise, or it feels like something you can use to be more skillful in the world, you might consider as a five that that's the personality's way of approaching the spiritual path. And then for the six, it's like there's an agreement that if I center in spirit, then I will become more certain and secure, right? So security, certainty being these core values of the persona. And again, don't we all? I mean, security and certainty are great things to have, and it's understandable, but it's more of like, well, what if part of the spiritual journey is actually to support you in being more expansive, right, in your way of showing up in the world. And so, or maybe even more shiny, like in the sense of being more exposed in the world. Maybe your call is that. But when the personality is like, oh no, this is not helping me because this is not helping me to feel more secure, you might want to consider, if you're a six, that that might be the six's lens actually taking over the spiritual journey. So for the seven, sevens tend to want to be more excited or feel free, right? So if I talk about spiritual freedom in the beginning, oh, they're like, oh yeah, I want that, right? I want to feel that sense of being unlimited. And again, I think all of these things that we've been talking about actually do happen as we awaken to our full nature. But when the type only wants that, and then balks at the idea that, well, do I have to be committed? Do I have to be devoted to? Or can I just be unlimited? You might consider that that's the ego talking to say, I can only be this way. It can only be this way for me. And that's what I want more of. And if the spiritual path isn't giving me more of that, then I'm not interested, or I'm bored with it. So for the eight, there's definitely a sense of seeking to be more powerful. And I definitely know eights who were like, oh, okay, so this is going to allow me to either achieve some level of power or control, like over my life or my life circumstances. And so maybe, I seek this kind of spiritual empowerment in the beginning, and then maybe only later does that budge, and you start to, as you deepen in the journey, recognize that, oh, it's actually the moments where I'm not powerful, that I'm beginning to embrace the moments of vulnerability and softness and all these other luscious things of life that I didn't initially think were valuable, things that I actually wanted. And then for the nine, peacefulness or harmony, like the seeking of that, like as isn't this supposed to be the outcome of spirituality? And I would say that in my experience, again, all of these things are, we live into our uniqueness, we establish a ground of being that is certain, we are freer spiritually, we're more a spiritual, more empowered because we know the seat of our being. And yes, we feel a sense of unity, oneness, and belonging with all life. And so that's not a bad thing to seek, and it's not wrong. But I've noticed that when the personality, especially in the beginning, like what's the incentive for engaging this contemplative or spiritual path? That often it is the desire to deal with conflict in the world or in your interpersonal life, and finding a way to find peace around it could be like the initial reason for coming to the journey, whether it's like inner peace or outer peace. And so then the nine's persona or personality can reject or pull back when part of the spiritual journey becomes uncomfortable or feels conflictual. And the personality might be saying, oh, well, this is wrong, oh, I'm going to walk through this. This is part of the journey, right? So I want you to begin here by simply noticing the ways that you might be both fixated in your type or have this like type lens. And also the ways, if you've been journeying with me for a while now, you might notice the ways you've sort of freed up around that energy. That might have been how you first came to the path, but you're noticing that's not all of it, right? That like I wanted to live my divine potential, be the most excellent human being possible, and that being related to that three energy of even, using the path for what my personality wants, and then realizing, oh, actually, um, I'm actually benefiting from the sense of love and connection, right? Like that's not about like being better than, that's about being with people, in connection with people in like a totally different way. I didn't know that could be so amazing and juicy. Every Enneagram type has this notion of what we call like the proxy. It's like, I believe if I get that other thing, I will be happy. And I realize, oh, there are many other aspects to my human existence that are valuable, and I wasn't even directly seeking it based on my Enneagram type. And so I open now to a fuller, more fulfilling, more luscious life because the my type number is becoming increasingly decentered as the seat of my identity, right? And as the thing that is master over my attention or what I value. So this relates to the Enneagram as this gorgeous map of our conscious awakening. And so now, if you're in our contemplative practices and the Enneagram groups, we're in week 11, we're almost done. And so, and if you've just been following us online, just notice that again, we only have one more talk in this particular series. And if you've really been journeying, you might notice either that boredom or that like, the ego's impatient for what it was seeking to happen, and see if you can like make some space around that impatience or that boredom or that like a sense of decreased commitment. And or some of you who've been really earnestly on this path might notice, like, whoa, like I do notice that I'm getting benefits from this. I'm experiencing the fruits of this contemplative practice that surprised me. It's like it's not what I came here for, but it's what I'm starting to experience. So just notice that. So, consciously tapping into the points along our connecting lines on the Enneagram can help to decenter the agenda of our Enneagram types. That's really the focus of today, so that we have space to embody our full, authentic selves and lives, including those parts of our authentic or true nature that don't fit what the type wants or is seeking. So, with that, I would like to turn to page 79 of the book. And so, if you're following along, this is day 34, your inner dynamism, right? So, it's not being stuck at your point. And so this idea that we're just, when people use the Enneagram to be like, oh, it's because I'm this number that I'm acting this way, as an excuse for being stuck in the way that you are. Here we open up to the dynamism, the fluidity, the energetic flow of your true nature. So I open with a quote from Michael Goldberg, who's the author of The 9 Ways of Working. He writes, here is the main thing. The lines are the basic building blocks of the Enneagram, not the points. An Enneagram line is an archetype, a collection of themes like a novel or a life. These themes are meant to be engaged, participated in, and wrestled with. I love that notion of the journey along the lines, right? The points can feel like static. There are points here, but like the lines, it's like a theme of movement of your life that you might integrate. And I'll give some examples from my own life here. So, as I write in my book, the Enneagram is a dynamic, also known as psychodynamic system. If you look at the symbol, the Enneagram symbol, you will notice that each number around the circle has two inner lines attached to it. For example, the 6 has one line to 3 and another to 9. The 2 has one line to 8 and another to 4, and so on for all the types. As we move along the lines within the Enneagram symbol, our personality goes through a significant, if only temporary, change. At the points where the lines radiating from our core type end, we experience a very different point of view and style of behavior. I'm going to pause for a moment from my reading to say that when I say our personality goes through a significant, if only temporary change, what I'm meaning to say there is simply that we do not change our core Enneagram type. We tap into the qualities or the themes of the numbers around the Enneagram, especially those along the lines, but that doesn't mean we become that other number. Right? So back to the book. Decades ago, this is very important for those of you who've come here but started studying the Enneagram decades ago. Decades ago, it was taught that when we move along the inner lines of the Enneagram in the following direction, 3 to 9, 9 to 6, and 6 to 3, 1 to 4, 4 to 2, 2 to 8, 8 to 5, 5 to 7, and 7 to 1, we are invariably on a path of disintegration. And when we move along the inner lines in the opposite direction, 3 to 6, 6 to 9, 9 to 3, 1 to 7, 7 to 5, 5 to 8, 8 to 2, 2 to 4, and 4 to 1, we are invariably moving along a path of integration toward wholeness. However, in the last decade or so, Enneagram teachers have come to more correctly and fully understand that it is not quite that simple. In reality, we can go to either the low or the high side of either of these points on the Enneagram. That is to say, we can express the less healthy or the healthier qualities of both points along our lines. This is huge. No longer is the story you go one way and you're disintegrating. You go the other way and you're integrating. So this is so important to know. So, in the direction historically called our line of disintegration lies our stress point, also known as our resource point. We tend to go this direction by default when we're under significant stress. For example, as a type 3, I used to work doggedly, completely unaware of any of my feelings, what time it might be, and whether my body needed anything like food or rest. Then, come Friday evening, when others might be ready for an outing, I would just conk out early and sleep through to the next morning. And so I also had cycles of burnout in which I would numb out with an entire television series or food binge or both, basically without recognizing it at the time, and this is in my book. I was going to the low side of my resource point 9. Not intentionally resting, but rather numbing, withdrawing, and checking out at point 9. Notably, it can be very uncomfortable to stay at our resource point, especially when we've dropped into it by default, rather than intentionally going there to tap into the higher qualities of that point. So, as an aside, Integrative 9 calls this our line of release. And to share some words from their website, this is my friend Dirk's website. The line of release represents a path that often feels more natural and accessible, It offers a direction towards security, possibility, and stress relief. This line is particularly beneficial during challenging times, providing healthy coping mechanisms and ways to alleviate tension. It allows us to tap into positive aspects of the connected type, facilitating increased health and self-actualization. So just noticing that, the availability of that. Contemplation increases our freedom from the fixation of our type, allowing us to become more self-actualized. So, back to my book. In the other direction, along what is historically called our line of integration, lies our heart point, sometimes called the security point. When we travel toward our heart point, we come to inhabit a set of qualities considered to be very valuable for our inner growth and transformation. This point holds a key to many of our shadow qualities, namely qualities we have repressed that are essential to our wholeness. We tend to naturally go to this point when we're feeling secure. This point tends to embody qualities that our type judges, censors, and forbids. This is why it can be helpful to have one-on-one or community support in working with the Enneagram. We often reject the very qualities we most need. As someone who leads with point 3, moving toward point 6, energy challenges my propensity to go about life alone just so that I can go faster. So yet in this way, it offers me one of the gifts I have most dearly sought throughout my life, the gift of authentic connection and community, right? So before I'm like going faster, people are so slow, I don't want to wait for anyone else. But then I'm like, why am I so alone? And so, because I'm judging the slow people and I'm judging the people who like spend all their time talking and connecting and collaborating. Like, this is historically, and didn't realize like, oh, that's the path to what I'm wanting. But I'm too busy running fast toward what I'm wanting, right? Not being able to tap into the 6 energy, at least historically. So again, going back to Integrative 9, I really like their description. They call it the line of stretch, and it represents a more challenging path of growth. It encourages us to step out of our comfort zones and embrace opportunities that may initially feel uncomfortable. This line is especially useful when we feel stagnant or need significant change in our lives. It offers the potential to develop latent talents, broaden our perspective, and increase our resilience. And so, for me, contemplation, contemplative practice, and especially centering prayer, loosens the grip of personality, right? The fixation of type, the insistence of it going this way, having type be in control of it and resistant to alternate ways of showing up in the world, attitudinally as well as behaviorally. The invitation for today, for this coming week, or however many weeks you'd like to practice this, the invitation is to consciously, not just default, under stress or under security, but to consciously tap into the energies of our connecting points. So with that, let's begin with type 1. For type 1, consciously tapping into the energies of your connecting points of 7 and 4. Experience the expansiveness of thinking skyward, that's the 7, as well as the deepening that comes from allowing the colorful array of your actual feelings. These inner movements can help you show up from a richer, more full-bodied place where life isn't so much about the minutia and nothing is starkly black and white. Okay? A little elaboration. So, 7's imagination, thinking skyward, possibility, not just pure pragmatism and like reality and what's here, but possibility, but also marrying that sense with the high of 4 and this lusciousness of dropping into your heart space to allow for the feelings that inform your existence. And then it's not so black and white. Life is in color, and you can show up in that way. It's not just good or bad, right or wrong, or black and white. So just sense into that. For the type 2, consciously tapping into the energies of your connecting points of 4 and 8. Delve below surface emotions to your deeper, sometimes darker motivations, while experiencing the steadiness that comes from grounding in your body. These inner movements can help you charge toward what you truly want and need with greater boldness and conviction. So, tapping into the energy of 4, delve below the surface emotions. Because if you are a 2, you're going to more readily feel like you've got positive, loving feelings, not some of the darker ones, whether it's jealousy or resentment or anger, and just really make space for all of that, allowing it to be without judging yourself as being a bad person or a selfish person. See if you can make space for that. But then you can support yourself by steadying yourself, feeling and sensing your body. So really letting yourself feel your body in the present moment, allowing it to be like, here I am. This is okay. And so in that sense, you're going to have more power to move toward your truth, your divine expression, right? Rather than simply responding or reacting to what others need in the world, coming from what's going to feel like a selfishness, but is maybe centered in what we might call the higher self. Now for the 3, consciously tapping into the energies of your connecting points of 6 and 9, bring a more considered approach and a more collaborative spirit to your actions, while intentionally slowing down enough to feel the splendor of the journey and not just the destination. These inner movements can help you to receive the joy of simply existing, as well as the tremendous gift of feeling genuine care and connection with others. So I mentioned earlier for the 3, there's some pieces about the 6 that can be hard. One of the pieces that I kind of name here is the considered approach. I know the tendency to move quickly into action, it can feel like the head types are like over analyzing things. And maybe, as a 3, like I could use more of that, of like this considered, more systemic view of things before moving forward, before taking action, and also that more collaborative spirit that 6, the gift of 6, really offers the world. And then regarding 9, there is like a slowness to 9 that I can struggle with, but within myself, allowing that slowness allows for that, again, the journey and not just moving toward the destination. And of course, slowing down also helps me to connect with my heart in 3ness, right? So 4, consciously tapping into the energies of your connecting points of 1 and 2, apply self-control to your restless energy and experience the sense of belonging that can come from expressing warmth, generosity, and curiosity toward others. These inner movements can help you escape the slippery slope of moody withdrawal, which only leads to more shame, suffering, and loneliness. So, when the 4 touches into the higher side of 1, there's discipline, self-regulation, not just being subject to your moods and your endless sort of restlessness around the what is mundane and ordinary, right? And then in the high side of the two energy, there's this fourness that is can be so self-referencing at times, and the two energy gives it the gift of shifting to some middle ground because the two is what we call other referencing. And so you're not just making their story about you or relating it to it from your perspective, but really caring about what their perspective is and holding space for that. And that allows a sense of greater connection. I do want to say that I've noticed that if you're a four and you have a social blind, you might be like, I don't identify with even wanting belonging. Like I want to be different, And again, this is a deeper sense of like you're belonging to life, to the universe, to the divine, to even yourself. And it's the personality that's like, I'm not interested. In fact, I want to stand out, right? But I'm talking about the soul level, like beneath that sort of reactive, I don't care anyway. I've been abandoned by life. That there is a deeper desire, I believe, to belong. So, for the five, consciously tapping into the energies of your connecting points of eight and seven, practice standing your ground and taking concrete action on your ideas, even while holding hands with your imaginative childlike energy. So take the hand of that kid, that childlike energy. These inner movements can help you balance your heady inwardness with a more energized, enthusiastic, and embodied whole worldliness. So rather than the inwardness all the time, balancing it with the energies of the eights, like embodied presence, and the nines, like childlike, joyful fun, not needing to take everything so seriously. Many fives are so afraid of being foolish, and the seven energy really gives you permission to be intentionally playful and foolish. So for the six, consciously tapping into the energies of your connecting points of nine and three, find the stillness within your mental storm. And then, with the clarity that arises from your inner peace, come to a place of resolution. These inner movements can help you to transform paralyzing doubt or constant second guessing into calm, faithful, and steadfast action. So the six, tapping into the energy of the nine, finds some rest in that mental storm. And from that, coming to a place of resolution, there's a firmness toward action, right? That the three is so good at, right? So rather than second guessing, you got this calm, faithful, and steadfast action that can emerge. Then for the seven, consciously tapping into the energies of your connecting points of five and one. Slow down, steady your pace, and apply the discipline it takes to envision and plan with greater depth and detail. These inner movements can help you relinquish lifelong self-sabotage and gain the sweet satisfaction of completing your goals and realizing your wildest dreams. Yeah. So the seven tapping into the five, there's just focus rather than a little bit of everything, right? Focusing in, deepening on one thing, and then the ones like discipline and sense of order can really support you, in really realizing your dreams, not just going on to the next dream, but actually having some footing on it. I remember working with a seven where this actually enabled him to get grounded enough to come up with a plan where he, as an entrepreneur, was able to sell his business, and his employees were really struggling with the fact that he just kept getting so scattered he couldn't do this thing that he really wanted to do. So again, we're not imposing something that is like what other people think you should do, but it's about what you really want. So for the eight, consciously tapping into the energies of your connecting points of two and five, get in contact with your emotional vulnerability and practice exercising more cool headed, caution before acting. These inner movements can help you lead more with your mind and heart, and not just your gut, helping you to bring greater effectiveness and big-heartedness to all that you say and do. So the 8 opens to the emotional aspects of the 2. So there's vulnerability because in the 2 energy, there's more mutuality. There's just, there's empathy, there's shared connection space. And then the 5 gives an intentional move into the 5, gives the 8 like informed action, right? And cool-headed caution. And it tapping into the 5's like, hold a minute, let's think about this, right? Which the 8 could definitely use more of. So moving to the 9, consciously tapping into the energies of your connecting points of 3 and 6. Focus your energy and organize your thoughts as you edge out of your comfort zone of blissful fantasies and idealizations. These inner movements can help you experience just enough of a destabilizing jolt to mobilize effective and efficient action on your personal, real world goals. For the 9, the 9 can have so much trouble with the 3 energy, like sometimes being somewhat jealous of it, but also being judgmental of those who like take up space or shine, and at the same time wanting to take up your rightful space and shine and have your views and your voice heard. When you are able to focus your energy and organize your thoughts, there's a space for really moving into that right action. And then the 6 energy really helps you uh, to think more clearly, to get organized, to be more realistic, kind of balance out some of that, a little airy head in the clouds kind of energy that can happen, uh, where that flowiness can actually impede taking concrete steps. So the energy of the 3 and 6 together can really serve you and get you out of that everything's fine, it's fine kind of energy. Remember, we can have some of the strongest resistance and the most negative judgments about the points along our type's moving lines. And often this is because the qualities embodied by the lower health expressions of that point contradict the idealized self for our type. So as the example I gave in the book is, as a 3, I've historically been most judgmental of the low side of point 9, for instance, which is laziness. Moving toward wholeness has been about recognizing that the 3's late tendency to overvalue work and productivity resulted in my condemning as lazy my very legitimate needs for rest and how about enjoyment of life, right? Like I was like, oh, life isn't to be enjoyed, life is to be earned, was my old story. But more and more there's space. So I'll close with words by Beatrice Chestnut from the Complete Enneagram. To transform, we must allow our defenses to crack open and break down, and consciously integrate our disowned feelings, blind spots, and shadow traits so that we can shake off the limiting outer shell of our personality and grow into all that we are meant to be. Thank you for joining me here today. I hope through this talk you might see some of the ways that you have become freer from personality as the seat of being, or perhaps from today's talk, you might notice how you lapse back into personality, setting your agenda and deciding what's important. And you could, in seeing that, you're able to just give a little bit more space and maybe tap into some of the qualities of your moving lines, the points along your moving lines, in order to make even more room for your full divine nature. Blessings.